Hello and welcome to the Hispanic Patriot Podcast, the weekly podcast broadcast live from a secret, undisclosed location here in the heart of the great state of Colorado. My name is Nickolas Razo, and without further ado, I present to you all our fearless patron, Hugo Chavez-Rey. Give it up for the Hispanic Patriots, everybody. Glad to see you here.
Hello. Welcome to another edition of the Hispanic Patriot. We are in the Christmas season officially, and it's good to have all of you tuning in tonight. It's going to be a hot show, hot topic, and we're going to get right into it. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Hispanic Patriot Podcast, where we cut through the noise and get to the heart of the issues shaking America. And today, we need to talk about a controversy that's not coming from the left, not coming from the media, but coming from inside our own movement. The very public fight between Candace Owens and Turning Point USA, the organization co-founded and led by the late Charlie Kirk, has exploded into a national spectacle. Allegations, counter-allegations, live stream challenges, promises to name names, talk of betrayal inside the conservative movement. It's all spiraling fast, and a lot of conservatives are confused, frustrated even, and wondering what's really going on. So today we're going to break down the timeline, the stakes, the motivations, and what this means for the conservative movement heading into 2026. What triggered all of this? To understand the current firestorm, we need to begin with the tragedy that still hangs over the conservative world, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Charlie wasn't just a commentator. He built TPUSA into the most influential youth outreach organization on the right. He had a massive donor network, a national presence, and he was shaping the next generation of conservative activism. His murder sent shockwaves not just through TPUSA, but through the entire movement. In the months that followed, Candace Owens began posting cryptic messages suggesting that the full truth about his death hasn't been told, that there were people close to Charlie who had betrayed him. She hinted at internal wrongdoing, possible cover-ups, and decisions by TPUSA leadership that she believes were unethical or suspicious. That's where the public conflict really begins. So, Candace has taken the gloves off. She didn't just criticize or ask questions, she went nuclear. She said there were individuals inside TPUSA leadership who had betrayed Charlie Kirk, taken actions against his interests, and potentially contributed to the circumstances around his death. She claimed to have evidence and promised she would name names. At that point, TPUSA couldn't stay silent any longer. Their leadership, publicly denying her claims, insisted she was wrong and said her allegations were dangerous, divisive, and baseless. Then came the moment that turned the controversy from online chatter into a full-blown political showdown. TPUSA publicly challenged Candace Owens to a live-streamed debate, a face-to-face confrontation, no scripts, no editing, no hiding, and Candace accepted. So we are now essentially watching a civil war, if you will, unfold inside the conservative movement, live and in real time. This isn't their first clash. Now, for people who've been following conservative media for years, this feud didn't come out of nowhere. Candace Owens was once a rising star inside TPUSA. She served as their communications director. She was on the main stage at their conferences. She was one of their most visible faces, but behind the scenes, there were already tensions, concerns about her increasingly controversial statements, disagreements about her role and direction, personality clashes, and a belief among some at TPUSA leadership that Candace had grown too independent, too big of a brand, too unpredictable. She resigned in 2019. That's 6 years ago, folks. And although both sides tried to keep things cordial, the relationship reportedly deteriorated fast. So let's fast forward to today, and you can see how deep this fissure really goes. This is not just about Charlie's death, it's about years of unresolved conflict and competing visions for power, influence, and leadership inside the movement. What's at stake for Candace Owens? Let's talk about what Candace is risking. Candace has built an enormous brand, and she's always positioned herself as the person who tells the truth no matter what. Coming forward with explosive claims fits her persona, but it also carries huge risks. If she produces solid evidence, she'll look like a hero, someone who stood up to a powerful institution and told the truth. But if she doesn't, her credibility takes a massive hit. Her brand could suffer and maybe viewed as someone who inflamed a conspiracy without facts. So let's be honest. Candace is a walking, what I would consider a very thin line here. This could either be her biggest moment or her biggest mistake. TPUSA is also in a dangerous position. They're one of the most powerful and well-funded conservative organizations in America. They have major donors, national events, a massive youth audience, and a reputation for being the next generation's entry point to conservatism. If there is even a perception of internal corruption, betrayal, or cover-ups, it could severely damage donor confidence, volunteer enthusiasm, and public trust. They cannot appear weak. They cannot appear dishonest. They cannot allow these allegations to hang in the air. That's why they challenged Candace to a live stream. It was a power move, a show of confidence, a message. If you have something, show it. If not, stop damaging our organization. That was their message. So this fight matters to all conservatives. Why? Because this is the part where we zoom out. This fight isn't about Candace. It isn't about TPUSA. It isn't even just about Charlie Kirk's legacy. This fight is about the internal fractures inside the conservative movement. On the left, everything is top down, coordinated, disciplined, controlled. On the right, we have influencers, organizations, personalities, egos, and sometimes they collide. The danger is that while conservatives are fighting each other, publicly, loudly, emotionally, the left is laughing and taking notes. The media loves conservative on conservative drama. Democrats love seeing our coalition splinter. And the activists on the left love watching our leaders tear each other apart. Heading into the 2026 midterms, heading into 28, we cannot afford internal civil wars. This moment is a test of maturity, a test of leadership, and a test of whether the conservative movement can handle disagreement without self-destructing. So let's be clear. Questioning is healthy. Skepticism is healthy. Demanding evidence is healthy. So here are the real questions that matter. What evidence does Candace actually have? Is it verifiable? Or is it speculation? What is TPUSA trying to protect? Its reputation? Its donor network? Or something more? Why did this explode publicly instead of being investigated privately? What does this reveal about internal accountability inside conservative institutions? And ultimately, will this conflict lead to truth or just more division? Conservatives should not blindly defend anyone, not Candace, not TPUSA, not influencers, not institutions. We should defend the truth, but the truth requires facts, not emotion, not loyalty, not outrage. So let me close with this. The conservative movement is under attack from every direction. We know that. Culturally, politically, legally, institutionally. The left is relentless, the media is ruthless, and the establishment is determined to silence voices like ours. So when we see internal fights like this, we need to care, but we also need to be wise. We need unity without blindness. We need accountability without destruction. We need truth without theatrics. Whatever happens next, whether Candace brings forward undeniable evidence or TPUSA vindicates itself, the movement must come out of this stronger, not weaker, more focused, not distracted, and more united around the principles that matter: faith, family, freedom, truth. Because at the end of the day, the left is going to defeat us. But internal division, I'm sorry, the left is not going to defeat us, but internal division just might, unless we learn from moments just like this. So let's dive into this topic and give me some of your thoughts, my intrepid co-host, Nickolas Razo.
Well, thank you very much, Patron. And you know how important this topic is to me because, as many of our listeners and viewers know, I actually grew up with Charlie Kirk in Chicago when we were both teenagers. So this really matters to me, whether or not people know the truth about everything going on. And I think that, I have a little personal experience with this as well because I've had brushes with death before and friends of mine and such, family members. And I think there's an inclination to believe an answer rather than no answer. And that's something that I see around very tragic deaths very often, is that people would rather come up with something that makes sense to them rather than accept what doesn't make sense to them. So I understand for Candace, when you see a friend die like that, is killed, you're going to immediately have strong emotions. You're going to immediately formulate an idea of what happened. But you need at some point to tear away that veneer of emotion to understand that this is also a historic event that is much larger than yourself. And so I wonder personally if Candace Owens wanting to make herself part of this historical event is the motivation, or does she see herself as the catalyst for something even more historic than Charlie's death, which is the circumstances behind her proposed cover-up and connections with foreign governments. And we're going to tear into all of that, but I just wanted to say here and now that the kind of thing I want to bracket this conversation with is, regardless of who killed Charlie Kirk, it doesn't bring him back to life. So that's something I want us all to keep in mind, that vindicating whatever the truth is, we're still in the same situation where violent people want us dead for our beliefs and are ruthless in doing so. And so we need to know the truth and be prepared for 2026 and have strong leadership, because more blood could be spilled if we don't have the protections that we need. So let's remember that as we dive into this topic.
I agree with that. However, the one thing that I would say is that while finding out the truth isn't going to bring Charlie back, we need to know the truth.
Yes, that's true. That's exactly right.
Because, that's important. I mean, Candace has lit a firestorm. Okay, let's just say that.
Oh yeah, big one.
And I got to tell you, I have mixed emotions about this because if she's right, all hell is going to break loose.
If she's right, then the entire connection of the Republican establishment, the entire establishment of the conservative movement, and its links with foreign governments is actually the horrific conspiracy that the most extreme of people had been advocating. And if that is the case, if the Candace Owens, Alex Joneses, if these people are actually right, then we need to highly reevaluate what's going on in the conservative movement, in the nationalist movement in terms of priority. Because if they're actually, this would be an act of war. Let's just be very clear. If some of the things that Candace is saying is true, and foreign governments could be behind Charlie Kirk's assassination, then that would be an act of war.
Exactly.
This is actually Candace. This is not a small thing, people. I think Hugo, maybe you could agree or disagree that people might have the opinion that this is just a drama spat, or that any fight between different conservative figures is just drama. I hate that word in relation to politics because let me tell you something, folks. That drama you're talking about in the political world on the ultimate level has the ability to affect the lives of millions and millions of people.
Yeah.
So let's take this seriously.
Well, at the top of my list is my concern for the youth movement,
Yes.
and to damage that movement that has been moving to the right and coming to uh, the knowledge that they've been lied to in their universities and by others. And then for something like this to come along that would kind of chip away at the foundation of Charlie's legacy, to me is is pretty much catastrophic, because if that movement is damaged, then the conservative movement as a whole is damaged, because we, as a conservative movement, I believe, this is my personal belief, is that we are wholly dependent and counting on the youth to rise up and take their rightful place in history and leadership within this nation. And if they're disillusioned by something like this that comes along and destroys what everything they've been, you know, uh, conditioned to believe through Charlie's activities, um, I don't know where that could end up. And
Well,
that to me, that would be the biggest, catastrophe for the conservative movement.
well, that's what I want to ask you, Hugo, because you are the older generation. As our viewers know, we are the Boomer and the Millennial here. I'll leave it to you to figure out who's who. But but really, this is a huge and important question because Hugo, your generation represents, from my generation's perspective, like the generation of Owens and people on the nationalist right, is that the older generation represents the conservative movement. And this is something I think we really got to talk about, that young people have been consistently in Republican circles, especially the activist Republican circles, rejecting the term conservative and replacing it with the term nationalist. And this is mainly to avoid like classically liberal politics, focus on capitalism. A lot of these nationalist conservatives are not inherently free market capitalists. I think that we have in this time a split between conservatism and nationalism in our movement. And I think what these folks believe, like people like Candace Owens believe, is that if Charlie Kirk was assassinated not by the far left, but by the controllers of the right, then this vindicates their nationalist movement and would essentially put a death knell to the conservative movement. And I think the distinction between these two movements are that conservatives typically support American institutions. They support the Constitution. They're mostly capitalists. They mostly, classical liberals rather. They believe in the things that have been classically Republican values for a long time, where these younger people tend to believe some newer values, whereas it's Trump populism or tariff policy and protectionism over the free market. This is the basics, but I think the emotional split is that nationalists believe that the older generation has not done enough to preserve America, and so there's nothing left to conserve. Whereas older people think there's something left to conserve. So, what do you think about that divide, Hugo? Because that's legitimately what I'm hearing from a lot
Well,
of
I
young
think
people.
there's a lot of truth in that, but let me dive into one area that, to me, that one of the most despicable things that I've heard, and that was that somehow Erika Kirk is involved in her husband's death.
Yeah, that's something that I particularly dislike, to be honest. I mean, it's
That to me
yeah,
is the most disgusting thing I've heard. I mean, that just boils my blood. I mean, for someone to come out and say something like that, and even imply it, just tells me that they have no soul.
Well, and that's why I think Erika Kirk actually really represents the middle ground between the conservatives and the nationalists, because she is clearly deeply affected by her husband's death. People say, oh, look, she's just back to work. I know. It's like, look, if you are in a situation where thousands, potentially millions of people depend on you, and somebody dies next to you, even if it's your best friend, your husband, whoever that is, you have to keep going. And the way that you have to keep going looks very difficult to understand. You're never going to understand the mind of somebody who lost their spouse, lost their family, lost something like that. Soldiers might understand this. You lose your buddy storming a position, you got to keep going. You don't get to cry because you have other friends and other people that rely on you. So imagine Erika Kirk having that on her head with two children who now she has to raise without her father. I think the fact that she's carrying on, and that's a show of strength. I think, honestly, it scares people. I think it scares weak people, because I think weak people, when they see a strong person get hit by something what should be fatal, and they're fine. Imagine this. Imagine you see a guy get shot on the street and he's just fine. No plate carrier, nothing. You would be scared of that guy. You know what I mean? And I think that's the reaction to Erika Kirk right now, is that it's a fear of her strength, more that's unfortunately inviting conspiracies around her that I think are honestly very disgusting and are mostly made by people who have never really dealt with a death on that level.
Yep. Well, I want to play this little clip that I found today. It's coming from the TPUSA producer, and he's commenting on Candace Owens' wild accusations about Charlie Kirk's assassination. So let's tune into that real quick and then see. We'll come back and discuss that.
Has responded to Candace Owens' wild accusations about Charlie Kirk's assassination.
Charlie's murder, Candace Owens has leveled a flood of allegations against people at Turning Point USA, people at Turning Point Action, and people who work for this show. She has made them against some of Charlie's closest friends and against some of his most dedicated employees.
Neff went on to list some of the accusations Owens has made since Kirk's murder.
Suggested that Michael McCoy, Charlie's chief of staff, knew Charlie would be murdered, was happy that he died, and stayed silent because he was told he would be the next Charlie. She has suggested Michael is not his real name. It is. I have seen his birth certificate myself. She has called it suspicious that Mikey's wife, who works at Turning Point, helped plan the campus tour event where Charlie was murdered, which she didn't, by the way. She doesn't work on campus events.
And he then went on to slam the commentator, saying nothing ever comes of the accusations because they aren't true.
I could go on. There is always something new coming up, and none of it ever pans out, because from the start, there has been nothing there. The attacks and allegations from Candace are either lies or they are innuendos thrown around with a total reckless disregard for the truth. So that
he then ended his editorial by inviting Candace Owens to a live stream to discuss the claims she has made. Owens released a scathing response.
I have to applaud that audacity. I have to applaud it. You do. You have to applaud it. These, excuse me here, but I'm trying not to swear. These men, okay, this company, these amazing lads over here have the audacity to accuse me of enriching myself when they were out there selling t-shirts, okay, of what Charlie died in to enrich themselves. They were selling t-shirts away at the Staples Centers. No, they were selling kit of what Charlie died in to the tune of $80 million plus that they made in the first 3 weeks, okay?
And then accepted the invitation to discuss her revelations on a Turning Point live stream.
Turning Point has moved to formally respond to all the things that we have said. And after a very long diatribe in which they wildly misrepresent the public and global investigation of Charlie Kirk's assassination, they at long last issued a public invitation or a challenge. I'm not sure what it is, but I accept, okay?
She then doubled down, posting on X, I received information last night that put the final pieces together for me. I now can say with full confidence that I believe Charlie Kirk was betrayed by the leadership of Turning Point USA and some of the very people who eulogized him on stage. Yes, I will be naming names and providing evidence for my claims. And I am making a personal plea to every well-meaning person who donated to this godforsaken organization to request a refund. You were lied to, and leadership knew. Outspoken commentator Tim Poole mocked Owens' post, saying, "I received information this morning that put the final pieces together for me. I can now say with full confidence that I believe Charlie Kirk was betrayed by Candace Owens and some of the very people who claim to be his friend. Yes, I will be naming names and providing evidence for my claims. And I'm making a personal plea to every well-meaning person who donated to this organization to say thank you. You were lied to, and Candace knew."
Wow. Yeah, this is quite disturbing.
And it is, and
Heard
for
him
more
imply,
reasons than one.
the one thing that jumped out to me is that she's saying that TPUSA was enriching themselves by selling T-shirts. I mean, it's all going to the cause. It's not.
Well, that and the Freedom T-shirts, my understanding was those were sold before Charlie was killed in them.
Oh
It was just
yeah,
one of their design. Like he always wore their. You always wear your merch.
of course.
Like what the heck? Like
Well, what are they not? Are they not going to promote the legacy of Charlie? And
I mean, Charlie could show up in like a yellow hoodie, like the ugliest outfit you could imagine, and TPUSA could sell it, and they would make money. Like it's really silly because it's sort of the whole reason you care, Candace. The whole reason that this is important is because this is one of the most famous figures in American youth conservative history. Like he's already a figure. He doesn't need your help. They don't need. They didn't need to sell T-shirts to help Charlie Kirk's legacy. You know what I mean? There's a very big chicken and egg problem that she obviously was saying just to deflect because she was being accused of enriching herself, which I have to say a lot of her content on this topic has been locked behind a paywall. So I think that's what TPUSA was legitimately pointing out. And I also want to say one last thing because I'm fired up on it. TPUSA is not the only people who have called Candace Owens out, and somebody that Candace Owens will not name that is calling her out is Nickolas J. Fuentes. Nickolas Fuentes, one of the boogeymen of the right, he's considered a Nazi, burrito Mussolini, he's sometimes called because he's Mexican. I don't know how he's a Nazi when he's Mexican, but that's whatever. He was one of the first people to go, I think this Israel connection is BS. I think Candace has lost her mind. And I think this whole thing around Charlie is absolutely ridiculous. But Candace has not said anything about, at least from what I know, about Fuentes. But she'll keep trying to spear Moby Dick in terms of TPUSA, if you will. So the fact that she's not going after smaller fish who are criticizing her, that's something that I notice and latch on
I think
to.
it's a little bit hypocritical for her to accuse TPUSA of enriching themselves, even as she is enriching herself with all these wild accusations and promotions that she's been doing.
But you have to understand, Hugo, she's making money off of the truth, and they're making money on lies. That's her understanding. That's what makes it different.
Okay. Well, I guess when the showdown comes, we'll all find out who's telling the truth and who isn't.
I think it's funny that the wife of a British lord is accusing a American grassroots organization of trying to enrich themselves for what it's worth. That'll be the last quip that I have on that.
Well, here's the part that I want, what it boils down to me is what evidence does Candace Owens actually have? And will she produce verifiable proof, or will it be mostly rhetorical? Because if she has hardcore proof, that would mean that all our law enforcement and intelligence agencies are just a bunch of buffoons because they don't have this
more, not only buffoons but active patsies.
I mean, this is what makes it so wild. It's that I gotta harken back a little bit to what she was saying in that clip. and that is she really? It sounds to me like there's something personal there going on.
Oh, I absolutely believe there's something personal. And I actually know for a fact there is, because to be honest, and like I said, I was part of the original Turning Point USA chapter. I never really formally left. I was always doing work with them and everything like that. But I will say, TPUSA was not unfamiliar with burning people. Like there was a lot of people who have been hurt by Turning Point USA on a professional level. I would say a lot of them deserved it, and I'm really sorry to say that. But for the ones who did not, they really did not. So I'll put it this way: there are people out there with way more of an axe to grind with Turning Point USA than Candace, and they have been universally grieving and mournful and saying, when death happens, the game is up. Like this is no longer a political game that we're meant to make money on and be famous for. This is a time to come together. And so when I saw people like that, really, really get back and be interested in even working with TPUSA again to try to influence it that way in a positive direction, I think that's a genuine reaction, not necessarily what Owens is doing.
Also, we need to point out, I feel it's important, her relationship with Charlie Kirk cooled way before his death.
Yes, it did.
And some insiders have even said that Charlie felt her views had become too extreme for TPUSA's taste. So for her to continue to act like she was some bosom buddy with Charlie, I think is also disingenuous, because she was no longer part of the inner circle, so to speak.
No, and I will also say that she was not part of what I would call the original crew. I mean, she was a later addition, years after Turning Point USA was founded, in fact. I was part of TPUSA's precursor organization, SOS Liberty, when it was like, I don't know, maybe 20 of us, active high school nerds, basically. She was not around at that time. So the fact that Charlie kind of found Candace, I think, it's like, for any rap fans out there, it's like 50 Cent being discovered by Eminem. It's like, but that's really what it was,
One could conclude that she hitched her wagon to the rising rocket which TPUSA represented to enrich herself.
Well, and I think not only to enrich herself, because all of us were trying to enrich ourselves, not in wealth necessarily, but for, connections and reputation and, the honor that you need in politics so people understand, who you really are. But I think that Candace fit a role. This is some deep personal stuff for Turning Point USA now that you will not find anywhere else. So while you're here, folks, if you want to click the subscribe button and like us, we'd really appreciate it. Share with all your friends, because literally you will not get these insights anywhere else. The person that Candace Owens was meant to be in Turning Point USA was kind of the replacement of someone who was forced to leave. And I'm not going to name names because I respect everyone involved. But Candace was effectively the Black power girl of Turning Point USA. She was the person who was the Black woman in charge, kind of attitude. That was the general political vibe of her character at the time. But it was professional. It was religious. It was extremely classical. It was a kind of, classy Afro-American culture that we really wanted to have in Turning Point USA. Because again, somebody who I still consider a friend, and I still consider someone who was a great worker, always had been. When they left Turning Point USA, when she was that character, Candace was the one who stood up. So I don't want to say that she was the diversity hire, because she was not. She was not a diversity hire. That's not how we were thinking of it. That's not how anyone thought about it. But she was meant to represent something.
Yeah.
And that was what she was, essentially. So,
well, I mean, I remember when she first came on the scene, she was very articulate. She was right on point. I liked a lot of the things she was doing and exposing, and she was a strong, convicted person.
She was honestly like a strong female Obama, and I mean that in a positive way. Like all the things that allowed Barack Obama to be successful in politics, I think that she had it in spades. I mean, the calm and articulate nature, the religiosity with still very like strong secular nationalism. I think that was actually something that Candace did very well at. But she's fallen kind of in this track, kind of like Kanye West, of, you know, it's the Jews 24/7. And that's like, it's honestly a topic that I want to, because I have opinions on this topic. Everyone does. But the thing is that you aren't special for knowing some of this knowledge. You know, because for all of our users out there, look up the term Gnosticism. Gnosticism. That's kind of what's going on here, is political Gnosticism. I have the special knowledge and you don't. That's kind of getting tired in politics.
And she's been teasing this all along, you know, it seems
you would just dump it on the desk right there if it was so important.
Yeah. It seems to me like, if she had what she claims to have, don't you think it would be incumbent to get it out as fast as possible instead of just dropping little bombs here and there and implications and the innuendos? And that's the part I think that bothers me a lot, is that she hasn't really produced anything, but she keeps feeding the flame of doubt and controversy. And
maybe we should, for our audience who is not so, maybe someone is not familiar, or some folks not familiar with what exactly Candace is accusing TPUSA and Charlie Kirk. You know, what is all this about? I think I will do this very concisely, under a minute. Candace Owens believes that TPUSA, believing that Charlie Kirk was a threat to long-standing American policy regarding foreign countries, mostly Israel, allowed, whether it was CIA, Mossad, or whatever agents, to sort of groom his assassin, supply him with the weapon, and allow this murder to happen, and also have in plans the sort of aftermath, the sort of national martyrdom and eulogy, in order to, number one, make money, number two, silence anybody who is moving away from this long-standing foreign policy, pro-Israel, etc., and to send a clear message to the nationalist emerging right that you will be destroyed if you even dare step off the plantation. Well, that is essentially what she's accusing them of.
I hear what you're saying. I have a little bit of a different take on that. I mean,
please.
I agree
neither of us know, and neither does she. So,
I agree with most of what you're saying, but what I have a problem with is these conspiracies.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that, let me tell you why. I've read a lot about conspiracies, what it takes to run a real conspiracy, and to run one of this magnitude requires a lot of people. Okay. Yeah. It's not going to be done by 2 or 3 people. So here's my skepticism about conspiracies. Okay. People are people, right? They're human. And some people are incapable of keeping a secret, and especially one of this magnitude. So if there's all of these people involved, how in the world is there not one among them that would be willing to come forward and expose the whole thing?
Yeah, I remember this was an old joke around Nixon, actually. He goes, you know how I know that Jesus Christ is Lord and the resurrection is true? Every single apostle died rather than recant. They broke the Watergate story in weeks. The most powerful men in the country were broken apart by what can only be described as hack journalists.
On the planet.
Yes.
Most powerful men on the planet. Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that that's really the key to all conspiracy right there. Or as a great pope once said, do you know, my son, with what little understanding the world is ruled by? As it turns out, people aren't that smart.
But you see what I'm saying, right?
Absolutely.
You know, that's why I have doubts and a very skeptical jaundiced eye when it comes to conspiracy theories, because, you know, it goes back, you can go back to the Kennedy assassination, you can go back to 9/11, you know, all these people saying.
Well, and even then, those have a different, this is actually, so I'm going to put on my conspiracy hat, because for any of you who think that, you know, I'm just a you know, a neocon who just believes whatever the media says. Let me put on my conspiracy hat for a little bit. So how the Trump assassination, the JFK assassination, the Ronald Reagan assassination, the way that these typically work is not a conspiracy to make it happen. What it is government entities knowing it's going to happen and letting it happen. So the idea is that Lyndon B. Johnson knew that, you know, blah, 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 Kennedy was going to get killed, and he basically let it happen. He made sure security wasn't there. The same accusation and style is leveled about the Trump assassination, that they could have stopped it, but somebody let it happen, probably in the Biden administration. This is consistently, same with 9/11, same with Ronald Reagan. That's the formula. They knew it was going to happen, and they let it happen. That's what makes me doubt Candace's story, because Candace is not saying, "Oh, they just let it happen." She's saying they actively made it happen.
Right.
That is different than any other conspiracy that has been leveled out there.
There's a huge, disconnect there with regards to the.
But one's more exciting than the other.
But more importantly, you know, look how fast these conspiracy theories came on the scene. It wasn't even 24 hours.
Right. She knew instantly.
You know, and then all of this was coming out. Oh, he wasn't on the roof. Oh, there was a guy on the other corner. He was behind a bush. He was camouflaged like a bush.
But if you're looking at this situation and within a day you say this was straight from Tel Aviv, then you're not. It's going to take a lot to dissuade you from that, especially because Candace also has a lot of people online who are consistently telling her that she's right about everything because she's feeding in to their beliefs.
She's got her cabal of supporters, but then she's also got her detractors.
Yeah.
And a lot of them that are coming out and saying Candace has lost it. You know, she's ready to be fitted with a straitjacket and committed because, you know, she's just outrageous.
Well, some of the clips that she had when she, you know, it's very telling that people can tell something's not right with her. And honestly, from personal experience that I will not get into, I've never met her, but I've met people who have met her. And I would say that while I won't tell any stories or name any names, she is not what I would consider the most normal or rational person on a social basis. Like, if you just get her alone, she's not going to talk about the most normal things in the world. And this is also true of people like Kanye West. I know I keep bringing him up, but honestly, that's the vibe I get from Candace Owens, is like a female Kanye West that hasn't put on the Hitler mustache. You know, it's like that there's a degree of separation of sanity there what Candace has, and that's as far as I can compliment her, is she's doing this while acting the bare minimum of sane. But you can see it in her defense. She's very defensive. And I think that defensiveness comes from kind of a front. You know, this is what people like Kanye, like Candace will do when they think that they're wrong or being challenged. Every challenge you give them is now an affirmation that they are right. That's why we never define ourselves by negation.
So let's shift over to Candace for a moment. And the question, you know, that's at the forefront of my mind is this a principled whistleblower moment or a personal grievance? Her brand and her credibility are definitely on the line. If she fails in this, she's done.
Yeah.
I mean, she will lose all credibility.
She'll be a fringe character forever.
Yeah. And so, you know, this is what, this is what's at stake for Candace and for TPUSA. Their donor base and youth influence make them a major player. So public allegations of internal betrayal could seriously damage their reputation. And in fact, it could bring it down altogether.
Yeah.
So these are the things that are at stake. So in a way, I'm kind of glad I hope this live stream takes place.
Yeah, I really hope it does too, actually. It's really the only way. We need more debate. We need more. That's why I very much appreciate figures like Tucker Carlson interviewing figures like Nick Fuentes, interviewing Candace Owens interviewing Nick. We need all these divisive characters to get together and talk more. And the reason is not even just to prove people right or wrong. It's because having connection is what eliminates this conflict. We need more debate and discussion. That's what Charlie was all about.
Mm-hmm. And the thing that we need to keep at the forefront is that all this internal warfare and strife, basically, they're giving ammunition to the left, and
that's something we do have to talk about.
And the corporate media, because the corporate media has no love for either Candace or TPUSA. So this could divide activists, donors, and young voters.
It could. And I would encourage it not to, honestly. I would actually, because this is a paradigm I've been trying to change in Colorado politics, because it's something that genuinely sickens me. I wish that we in the Republican Party would consider our internal squabbles to be sparring, to be training, to be readying ourselves to see who is really deserving in their place in the hierarchy of the movement. I'm glad this stuff is happening, and I think we have to grow thicker skin for it. I think we need to be for the fight. I think we need to be in with it. I think we need to be here for this. Because if we're not, then what it looks like is that we are scared of drama. We have to be clear. This is serious business. This is not drama. This is people of a mental, spiritual knighthood who are jousting for the future to lead the vanguard of the movement. This is big stuff. Who's going to lead that vanguard is who's going to break through the enemy lines. We need to make sure that person can handle anything. And let me make this very clear. If you're a Republican and you cannot handle other Republicans, you have no business stepping on a battlefield with Democrats, because they will eat you alive.
Yeah.
We need to grow thicker skin, people. We just need to.
And this is a situation where we definitely should demand the truth. Of course.
Oh yeah,
that's first and
always
foremost.
The truth.
We should demand transparency, and we should demand some maturity.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of crazy podcasters out there that are quite immature, in my opinion. And they're not commenting on this in a proper manner. It's almost like they bank on hyperbole and sensationalism.
But they do, and that's the problem is that new media is taking cues from old media. This is honestly so depressing. The fact that conservative podcasters, not us at Hispanic Patriot Podcast, we are completely authentic. You know it, because half the time, me and Hugo always, let me tell you something, are right 100% of the time.
Yep. Well,
but jokes aside, folks, this is really concerning. No, really. But this is concerning that we can't have conservative new media and nationalist right-wing media act just like CNN. That's what's happening.
Yep. And we have to just keep what's important at the forefront of all of this.
Yeah.
It's not the personalities. It's not the hyperbole. Not the the hyper.
The quote unquote drama. It's not about that.
The drama queens and kings out there in Netherland, and we have to bring it back into common sense. Okay, yeah. I like that, because common sense has always served me well. Me
too. Funny how that works.
Joking about us being 100% right all the time, but I'll tell you what we are doing, and we will do, and always will do, is if we are shown to be wrong about something, we're big boys. We can stand up and say, okay, we were incorrect about that.
Yeah.
We will correct the record.
But honestly, and wouldn't Candace love to be wrong about this? I mean, if I was Candace Owens, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, my friend wasn't murdered by a cabal that's bigger than God himself? Oh, thank the Lord Jesus. I'm so glad that isn't the... But I doubt that she would feel that way. And nobody who believes in these conspiracies feels that way. It's like, wouldn't you like to be proven wrong, that the world is not as horrible as you think it is, because it's truthfully not that bad? I don't think a lot of these conspiracy people would agree with that implicitly. They need the world to be bad. And I don't think the world needs to be a bad place for us to have enemies. who want to destroy us. It's like the world is bad, folks, but it's not that bad. And if I can leave you with one quick piece of advice, be happy when people prove you wrong, okay? Especially if you're wrong about something terrible. You know what I mean? In politics, there's a lot of being right about bad things. Enjoy when you're wrong for once, because you know what happens when you're wrong? Then you're the one who can make it better. If somebody else is wrong, you can't do anything about that.
That's right. That's right. And there's a lot of people that are wrong out there that will never admit it. They're stubborn.
Sadly.
Unfortunately, I have the displeasure of running into those in social media almost every day.
You attract them like a magnet, actually, to be honest.
It's just something that boggles the mind. And, I've grown a little bit more tolerant of that. And I don't let it get under my skin as much as I used to, because I've realized that I can't do anything about their stupidity. Okay?
No.
And the more you try to point it out, the more they dig their heels in and double down on their stupidity. So
it's a sad thing. But that's what we have to fight against, with love and truth. That's the only way we're going to do it. By example, too. Lead by example.
So it begs the question, and I guess we've already addressed the answer, but why is this exploding publicly instead of being handled privately? Why do you think?
Why should anything be handled privately in the 1984 era of mass surveillance? You know what I mean? Like, they have all of our, DNA in banks or whatever. They have everything we've ever posted online. What even is private anymore? But actually, I'll quickly make this point. In the past, we didn't know privacy as human beings. We lived together. We died together. People couldn't go behind each other's backs because there just wasn't room enough in the castle to, find a room and conspiratize, We live in an era of such unprecedented luxury that we had privacy. Now that we're going back to sort of a post-apocalypse, people, you notice, we're not going to have as much privacy. You notice that, how many people live with roommates? 5 or 6 roommates in this country. You know what I mean? There's no privacy because there's no money. You need to have money and wealth for privacy. So I think that as long as we are racing toward the abyss, we're going to have this fight between nationalists and conservatives about how much time in the world we have. Do we have time for privacy? Or do we need to know who people are right this minute? And you know what, Hugo? I'm happy this is happening now.
Are you predicting the end of the world already?
Well, when somebody asks me, are you ready for the fall time, like they did a couple months ago, I wonder, do they mean the season or the end of civilization?
Yeah.
I will say this, Hugo, because your generation doesn't have this as mine does. My generation thinks about the end of the world and apocalypse way too much. I don't want to think about apocalypse. I want to think about the beautiful world to come, where us young people actually fix everything and do the right thing, raise beautiful children that make a beautiful new world. That's what I would like to think happens. And I would like to invite all of you to join me in trying to make that world happen. And Hugo as well. Even though he won't see it, he still wants to make a beautiful world for us. Isn't that nice of him?
Of course. I will be watching from up above.
Yes, you will. With all of our prayers, you definitely will, Hugo. I love that.
So let's kind of
wrap this up in a bow for Christmas
into a little ball, and I think that the important thing that we want to leave our audience with is, number one, is we need to stress for truth.
Yes.
Over personalities. Okay. There's a lot of personalities out there. Okay. And most of them are self-serving. So be careful who you're listening to, and don't just buy into something they're saying because they're a personality. Okay.
Or that you even have the same ideology that they do.
Personalities can be dead wrong. And second, we want to remind the listeners that the conservative movement cannot afford to splinter going into 2026. Okay.
That's true.
This is, everybody says, oh, this is the most consequential election. Well, look, we got President Trump elected. Okay. He's basically coming up on his first year in office. In the midterms, if the Republicans lose control of the Congress, everything that President Trump has accomplished thus far and had planned for the upcoming years of his administration will be lost.
Yeah.
Because immediately, if the Democrats take control of the House, the first thing they're going to do is impeach him.
Yeah, all over again.
That's going to be the next 2 years, and that's just unacceptable in my opinion. We cannot, as conservatives, sit on our hands, stay home, and for whatever reason not vote. Okay. Yeah. We just had I was watching this race in the special election in Tennessee where the Democrats were all gung-ho. They were saying they were going to take that seat and blah, blah. And, Tennessee is a pretty red state. And they were saying all along he was going to win by 10 plus points, and he did. But then the naysayers came out and said, well, we should have won by 20 or 30 points.
It's never good enough.
It's never good enough for some people. So, all I'm going to say to you people out there listening and looking forward to next year's elections, if you stay home and President Trump loses control of Congress, shame on you, and you will be the reason that we are going to be in the mess that we will be in if the Democrats take back control of the House and the Senate.
It's true, and I want to actually point that at my young conservative and especially my young nationalist far-right friends, my right-wing friends, because honestly, you guys have honestly disappointed me a lot, because the far right, or what I would consider the nationalist right, whatever you want to call them, has consistently sat out of power. And I think that's ridiculous. I think if you honestly believe that you are one of the strongest religious people you know, that you are one of the strongest patriotic nationalists you know, and all you do is talk about how bad everybody else is for not being as far right or as far religious or whatever as you are part of the problem, because you are making your ideology and your lifestyle unattractive. You are making it completely unattractive for people to want to be a part of what you are believing in. You need to sacrifice. You need to put yourself out there. And honestly, you're not weird. You're not strange. You're not odd. You probably have a certain class and grace about you, or at least can acquire it, that a lot of young people today don't have. Go and teach them. Because honestly, if you believe yourself to be a leader in the making and you're not teaching your ways to your fellow young people, then you're not a leader. You're just a follower. And if you are a follower, that's fine too. Come and like us, give us a subscription, donate at our website, because if you don't want to do something, we certainly will here at Hispanic Patriot Podcast.
Yep. So we had one comment about somebody was asking, what if it's true, though? Well,
that's a lot of implication.
In answer to that question, we have to understand that what we're looking at is right now, it's just innuendo. Okay. Yeah. Until the evidence is there and somebody points it out, produces it, and lets people see it, and it is verifiable, then we can say that. But right now, to me, it just smacks of sensationalism and hyperbole.
But I will give an answer to that quickly. If it is true, if what Candace Owens is saying about Charlie Kirk is true, then everything will have to change very quickly. And we will have to be open to things changing very quickly. And Hispanic Patriot Podcast will be with you every step of the crazy journey to help make sense of it.
Yep. And
so fear not.
With that, we are coming up against the clock.
Indeed.
We hope that you've enjoyed what we've discussed tonight. Send us a message. Please hit the like and subscribe button.
Yeah, and comment down below what you think about it all.
When you hit the like button, you help others see the show as well.
Yes.
And you help us grow.
Yes,
and
indeed.
If you're inclined, drop a nickel here and there.
So yes, please. Thank you so much.
We appreciate all the support we can get. So for now, we're going to sign off, and we'll look forward to the next show. And we'll definitely be looking forward to this live stream that's going to come up between TPUSA and Candace Owens.
Yes, keep an eye out for it. We might react to it.
All right.
God bless America, though.
God bless everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you all.